Welcome back to another Real Chums initial reactions and impressions for Deadpool Wolverine. If you are coming from our news episode, please thank you. But if you haven't, check that out after this one because we talk about some of the stuff that was showcased at Comic Con. Look, we're probably gonna have spoilers in this, so if you haven't watched Daredevil and Wolverine, that's probably not even. I'm not sorry because literally this is the worst kept secret movie I've ever seen. So you probably already seen the movie without seeing the movie, and I'm mad about it. So we're talking about spoilers. We're gonna talk about all of it. That's honestly where I want to start. Listen, Marcel,
Okay. Yeah.
I have never felt so mad as a moviegoer, as a filmmaker, than I am for this movie. Like, I don't who has the audacity. Like, I saw on Twitter that people are out there like they're just like straight up like filming during this movie and then posting clips like literally like nothing is being left for like what the heck.
Okay. So your frustration is coming from more towards the audience recording and sharing, or viewers
I
talking
think it's a
about.
little bit of both because
Uh,
I think both the viewers are doing it, but then Marvel is like they're like whatever. We're just gonna capitalize on momentum, and they're like kind of diving in, like they're just kind of like not feeding the beast, but they're definitely doing. They're like not trying to shut. They're just like whatever. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
yeah. No. No. You're right, and I think so. My frustration came from the fact that like that week the movie came out on Friday, and then just that week they were showing like Daphne Keene returning as X-23, right? And that like I saw that
Yes.
on Twitter, and I was just kind of like, why did you show me that? Like I wanted like
Yes.
it was rumored they interviewed her during the press for the Acolyte, and she's like, no, I'm not in it. I was hoping I'd be in it, right? So like,
Yeah.
and then you reveal it over like on Twitter, and I was so that's when I got like I
Yeah.
muted it, and I was just like, no, I'm done. Like I don't want to know anything because you just kind of ruined that for me. And then
I
during Comic Con at Hall H, the day I think their panel was Thursday or Friday, so it was literally within hours or during the time frame of grand opening for the movie that the whole cast came out. And I saw that, and I just like immediately turned it off. And then later that night on Friday, I went and saw the movie. But like that's kind of a bummer also that they brought
yeah.
everyone out, like all the cameos, and I was just like, what? Why are you doing this?
Dude,
um
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so my little soapbox guy. I don't know if this is going to be a regular thing as these new movies are coming out, but I really hope not. I think it's a freaking it's I don't know if it's this is part of on the part of the theaters or if this is like forgetting of like movie theater etiquette or of like or remix culture from like TikTok and the TikTokification of like remixing and repurposing content for other platforms. Like I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's disrespectful. I also it's a disservice to people who haven't seen it who want to have it not spoiled. Um, pretty not cool. Uh,
Back when they did Infinity War, um with the Russos, Kevin, the like all the official MCU accounts did a like a post where it said,
yeah,
please
they did
don't
like a
spoil
ban.
the movie, right? And it had like
Yeah.
the Thanos glove on it, right?
Well, they did the
The
same
Infinity
thing.
Gauntlet.
They did the same thing for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Did they? I didn't see
Yes.
anything.
Yeah, I saw. There was a um. Was it on Twitter? Maybe on Facebook. I swear, I saw something that said, "Don't. Hey, those people who are going out to see Deadpool and Wolverine, uh, don't ruin it for anybody." Like,
But you can't set that precedent when you are already like spoiling it. You officially are releasing Daphne Keene on Twitter. They showed Lady Deadpool, right? Like 2 days
yeah,
before.
yeah,
And that was
yeah.
like that
It's
was something
true.
that I also was kind of like, wait, no, I didn't want to know that Lady Deadpool was in this. Like I wanted that to be a surprise when I'm there, right? So I think it's a I don't know. It's a miss. Someone asked Kevin Feige last week during the press rounds if he was open to the idea of only doing one trailer for the MCU, and he said he was. Like that's something that he would like to explore and like consider more. I think that's great, but like you also have to like scale back like the the release of information like this,
Yeah,
especially for like a movie like Deadpool that was already projecting with pre-sale tickets. This movie we already knew was going to be good. Why then try to get us excited by releasing some of these cameos when you know the movie's already going to do
I
well?
don't know,
Like
dude. I don't
it
know.
was kind of a
It's
bummer, but
it was a bummer. Okay. With that being said, let's actually talk about the movie. What are your initial thoughts? Do you want who? I don't know. Do you want to go first? Should I go first on your
I'll
initial
I'll
feelings?
I'll jump on my initial thoughts. For those that have seen it, if you haven't seen it, again, spoilers alert. But the movie follows obviously Deadpool, who is being offered an opportunity to join the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, by
Marvel
the TVA
Jesus.
from by the TVA from Loki, but he has to recruit Wolverine to save his universe from from extinction, so to speak. Um, my initial thoughts. I really enjoyed it. Actually, I had a great time. I think the for the most part, I think the jokes landed really well. We talked about this during our discussion of the first Deadpool, how it felt like a lot of the jokes from the trailer were just given, like all the good jokes were just on the trailer. I felt like there was a lot that they kept hitting. Right, I only saw the one trailer because I made sure not to watch anything else. So for me, like there was still plenty of meat to chew on as far as like comedy beats go and jokes. So I like that aspect. I thought it was really smart how they introduced um Deadpool in here. This idea of him wanting to he jumps timelines and wants to get recruited in 2018 by the Avengers, and then he gets rejected. And then the TVA gets involved. I thought it was a well done. This is one of the big criticisms of the X-Men of the Fox Marvel projects was that there was just no consistency in like storytelling, right?
Mhm.
In one X-Men movie in the 80s, in the 90s, what's his face is walking, Xavier is walking, but yet in another movie in the 80s of the X-Men, uh Professor Xavier is not walking. So like there were so many inconsistencies in the story, and it shouldn't bug me, but it does. Whereas here they really did a good job at like how can we incorporate this storyline and like keep it as consistent as we can. Like I appreciate that the writers went and watched Loki season 1 and Loki season 2 and really like said how can we leverage this mythology, this story, and like incorporate this character in here. I'm still munching and chewing on the idea of the what's that new concept they introduced of when
Uh,
the
core
not a
anchor
core character
anchor hero
anchor
or people anchor people
anchor
or something. Yeah,
yeah. It's interesting that they introduced
yeah.
this idea of like this anchor hero that if they die, then the timeline
Your world cease
gets
to exist.
yeah, your world ceases to exist. It's interesting. It'll be interesting how they leverage that in the future. I think maybe the whole Robert Downey Jr. being announced as Doctor Doom might play into that. Secret Wars, right? I think it's a cool concept, but you might have written yourself into a corner with this concept because now like you can't kill like some of your heroes, right? You can always say
I
like they're
mean,
not an anchor person, but it'll be interesting how they
yeah,
leverage this concept moving forward.
agreed.
um
I had the same thought on that aspect.
I do feel like some of the cameos where I don't know, and I'll look. I did not care for Channing Tatum as Gambit. I I never cared for him when he was announced back in like 2000, 2014 or
Revenue
2015,
goal.
right? At Comic Con, like when they announced him, I was like, no, not Channing Tatum. Like I want a Gambit movie, but not Channing Tatum. And this movie just validated my feelings of like I'm glad that they did not do this. I think we talked about this in one of our movie segments how Sony was going to do a movie about that one Spider-Man character who was Bad Bunny was going to play him. He was
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
luchador,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. El Muerto or something like that. I can't remember.
El Muerto, yeah, El Muerto, right? And how it good thing it didn't happen, and I applauded when that movie did not come out. This is how I felt about Channing Tatum when they scrapped his movie. I was like, I'm glad that's not happening. And this movie just him appearing in here, I was just like, yeah, like I could have done without him. I think it's when you start. I'm gonna go on a rant here. When you start pulling in cameos of unmade
Uh,
movies, when you start pulling in cameos from unmade movies, like you're just scraping at the bottom of the barrel. Like why are you doing that? Like I think that's just such a like he never had a movie. The movie never went into production. It had some
it
pre-production,
feels
but it never
like
went
I
into
was
production.
born here,
Anyways, that's just
dude. So
how
I
I felt
love.
about that. Some of the cameos
I've
was just some of the cameos I was just was like, it's fine. This is
yeah.
whatever. But overall, I enjoyed this movie. I think it's great. I'm excited to continue to see Deadpool in the MCU. Moving
Yeah.
forward, it'll be interesting to see how that plays. But overall, I had a great time with this movie.
I also had a I had a blast, yeah, with this movie. I want to second the fact that I felt like the comedy was pretty great. I felt like if they were trying, um, they I feel like this is a movie that I can watch multiple times, and I'll find that every joke is smarter, and it will be smarter and smarter in where it's placed, how their timing of it, and like the overall aspect, the impact of what that joke really imply is trying to mean. Um, and I think I'm like excited to experience that through the long haul. This movie should have been 30 minutes shorter, probably like 35 minutes shorter, maybe even 40 minutes shorter. And I think it would have
Oh,
landed a little. I think it's too long. I think if they, I understand like that they were trying to do a ton, and they were trying to give like fan stuff, but I would have freaking loved a shorter, more concise story for theatrical release, and then had like a special Blu-ray, whatever, that had an extended cut, um, for us that we could like really enjoy, and then have like additional like love moments, right? Maybe those cameo moments that were in all this aspect, right? Um, I think it's also a testament to Ryan Reynolds and his prowess in being able to like crap on so many people and get away with it. And I think it's freaking hilarious. Um, I loved Gambit.
no, no.
I don't think I would have loved the movie, right? The movie would have been trash. But I freaking
Yeah.
loved Gambit in this. I loved Channing Tatum playing uh just this character that didn't ever get a movie, and he just gets this one little thing. Um, I do think that like we should get a Gambit movie, or Gambit should be involved. Like I really like Gambit is such an amazing character, and I think this just goes to show, even though it's like over the top, um, and ridiculous, but I freaking love it. Jennifer Garner and Wesley Snipes coming back also, I thought was that's great. Um, I I will say this. Like I said, I think it should have been shorter. Um, and I, 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 we talked a little bit about this, but like I wasn't sure where I felt about Wolverine coming back, or Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine, especially with the fact I appreciate that like they gave him like a weird homage and love in the opening credits to Logan. and that's the premise. And I think that's a huge testament to James Mangold and his amazing work with Logan and what he was trying to tell there. And I don't think we would be able to have this film without that film. Um, but I think I think there's times in this film that I just feel like um, Hugh Jackman is not having a good time. Like he's just
Really?
I don't maybe it's and that's just my initial impressions. Like don't get me wrong, I freaking loved very real moments. I've loved aspects, but like when I sit back and I think about some of the thoughts, this Wolverine is too depressed, too sad. He doesn't have a ton of lines. He's it feels like he's just this weird sidekick that is along for the ride,
Yep.
to appease the the masses, and it kind of feels wrong. Um, in, even though I want it so much, like I wanted the costume, I wanted to see the mask and everything, but at the end of the day, I I I think this movie could have slightly been better with a uh, like this movie could have been the movie that helped uh, Captain America, Anthony Mackie be given the okay for him to be Captain America because they chose not Hugh Jackman. Now, continuity wise, I guess you could say like no, this is the only way they could do it, right? Is to have Hugh Jackman back. So there's that whole perspective. But and then there's the whole montage with the Wolverine aspect of it, which again, super funny, super great. Um, I just there's just the overall feeling that I got left over is just that like I'm not sure if Hugh Jackman really at the end of it like was like real like I don't know. I just felt like not as beloved. I don't know. That's just my initial instant take from the film. So
Interesting. I think,
that's kind of where I'm at.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's
One last
interesting.
thing.
Oh, go ahead.
One last thing before you hop into that is that I also felt like I think the shorter story would have helped. The shorter runtime would have helped the overall story. I felt like, what the hell is the purpose of the story, other than like if I'm especially if I'm like trying to understand like what is the only reason for this whole movie to introduce anchor heroes or whatever. Um, because like at one point it was like some weird it's supposed to be like a weird TVA like episode like low like TVA sort of like side quest thing, and then it turns into a weird semi X-Men uh big dilemma problem with what's her name, Xavier's twin sister,
Sandra.
Cassandra, right? I'm just like I'm not like I felt like that got really muddled in the overall story. Like again, am I gonna love this movie time and time again? I probably will. Because it's just there's really good writing in here. Okay, I'm not, but I think the story writing and elements overall, I don't think it lands actually. It's
I
actually a bit weak in my opinion.
I agree with that, and I'm glad that you talked about how like it needs to be shorter. I think there were moments where you could tell that we were just having fun and let it roll and see what we get, or maybe let's flesh out this aspect. Keep in mind this was also during the writer's strike, and so maybe that got affected by it. I I do feel like it there were moments where this could I agree, a shorter story would have really helped this the over a shorter movie would have really helped the overall story. Going to your point about Hugh Jackman, I mean, look, why did he come back to this movie? He's talked about how he always wanted to do something with Ryan Reynolds, right, as Deadpool and as Wolverine. He's always talked about how like his biggest wish and regret was that he was never part of the Avengers franchise, right? So I agree with you in that aspect. I also think having done a shorter movie would have given you the opportunity, and maybe that's the problem here, is that they didn't know how to write to Wolverine. And how do you write
Yeah.
to
Oh,
Wolverine after such a impactful movie that was Logan, that just encompassed who he is as a character, who he is as an individual, as a mutant, as a former X-Men. Like that movie just encapsulates his legacy and gives you such a perfect ending that that I think, and I talked about this. I think what I was really excited for was you're bringing in Hugh Jackman, who's an incredible actor and can give
Yeah,
you not only great action sequences, but is an amazing dramatic actor, and to
and I
be
don't
able to
think
give him the lines. And I don't think that was used. I mean, you had that interaction between him and X-23, Daphne Keene's character, right? Where he's sitting by the fire and she's coming in, and I'm like, okay, like for me, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be our big like gravitas emotional acting moment, and it wasn't. And not because of Daphne Keene or Hugh Jackman. It's because they don't, I don't think they knew
there was
how to write to this character that had such a beautiful ending.
I I I feel like there was something. It feels like there was a scene cut. I don't think there was any good. There was not a good. There was no good enough setup. I feel like to help us understand. I think if they kept trying with Wolverine, and it just, I don't think it landed. And I think that's a testament of why we feel that way. Um, Look, the again, like I the this movie is, I think for me, ultimately at the end of the day, I think if I look at this movie as a love letter that I think Ryan Reynolds and team are doing to the characters and the people of, of the X-Men and some of the entities that Fox had, um and how that what those characters and individuals brought to cinema at a time that maybe wasn't ready for it. I think this movie's amazing.
Yeah,
And if I look at it that way, like I think this movie is absolutely amazing. It's phenomenal. It's I truly love it. Uh, Looking at it as like this weird, as this like some new point or new perspective in the arc of Marvel, which is where I think most people are looking at it. I think it was a good movie. I enjoyed myself. I still like. I think it's probably it's better than some of the movies that we've had, but I think it's a little greedy in its overall um, uh, deliverance for Marvel.
yeah, yeah. No,
So
I had, and you know, to echo that, like I had a great time with this movie, and I think I will enjoy this more and more as I continue to watch it. I just I think what my biggest takeaway is I I don't want Hugh Jackman back in the
until
MCU. Like until he's 90. That's right. I don't like. I am ready to close that chapter. And I've said this before, not because I don't like him. I think he's incredible. I'm just it's the same feelings I have for like Henry Cavill. Speaking of, as Superman, I loved Henry Cavill. I think he was great. It's a shame that he didn't get the right movies to really help him exemplify the character of Clark Kent and Superman. But like, I'm ready to move on, right? Like, I'm ready to put away Zack Snyder's DCU away and begin with James Gunn's. It's the same thing. I feel. Hugh Jackman is incredible in the role. He gave us a wonderful ending with him and James Mangold, and I'm just ready to move on to the next set of X Men, whenever that may be or whatever that may look like. Um, but I hope the lesson here for Kevin Feige and the MCU is not let's bring back Hugh Jackman and
yeah,
let's bring
look,
back who can we pull in from the Fox universe as we
yeah,
build out the new X-Men. I hope that's not the lesson learned here. I hope the lesson learned here is, yeah, it's fun to have these some of these cameos, but like the lesson for me here is how can we pay how can we be true to the character of Deadpool or of any of these characters in their essence and who they are, and leverage what we have to tell incredible stories, right?
Yeah. I,
And I hope that's kind of I hope that's how it is moving forward. But I fear that we're going to be pulling Wolverine
well,
back.
I mean, Robert Downey Jr.'s back,
Oh
so
yeah,
like,
right there you go.
so here's the thing, like, it's we're already there. If it feels like, here's one last thing I want to say. I watched a clip from, I can't remember what the filmmaker who the filmmaker was, who he won an Oscar or some award, and he just said, he's like, look, I know that we're in a risk adverse industry, but like, don't let's not make one $200 million film. Let's make 50, or 500, 53 million dollar, or whatever the breakdown is, right? Like, let's do more films at a smaller budget and get more stories out there, despite it maybe, you know because it's less, like, oh, it feels risky because I'm like, oh, if I give you 52 million, it's not gonna be good enough. But I think Deadpool is a huge testament as to a fact that, like, if we give people who have a passion for a story, and we, that the it could be that, like, that film turns into something that is beloved, and it can turn into something, more. And if we have more of those from different studios, that means that gives, people opportunity to fall in love with those characters, and then maybe tell new stories, that pay dividends for those studios. And I just feel like this, although Deadpool in its, I think we talk about this a little bit, that, like, look, the film, the budgeting or the cost for this film is astronomical. I mean, probably close to $600 million. Uh, and I I just, I don't know. It feels like a ton of money for something that maybe we could have had two really fantastic films rather than one, whatever. So, anyways, that's my final thoughts. Yeah.
My last thought, and I probably you probably saw this. James Mangold was being interviewed. He has a new movie coming
Yes.
out, the Bob Dylan movie, and he talked about, like, they asked him about, like, the multiverse, right? And he says that he doesn't like multiverse movies. Let me pull up the quote. He says, "quote It's the enemy of storytelling, the death of storytelling. It's more interesting to people the way the Legos connect, than the way the story works in front of us." And then he goes on to say, like, for me, the goal becomes always what is unique about this film and these characters, not making you think about some other movie or some Easter egg or something else. Um, and so, like, he, as the writer and director of Logan and the Wolverine, for him to be like, no, like, I don't like it because it's always good to have a beginning and aim for an end, right? And to have that insight to say, how can I grow this character into what it needs to become by the end? But look, overall, if I were to give this a rating, and that'll be my last question for you, Danny, what would you rate this out of 10? I give this like a solid 7 point. I'll give it like an 8. Like, I had a great time with it. I know I have some issues with it, but, like, I had a wonderful time with this movie. It was funny. I give it a solid 8.
I think at 8.5. Like, I really enjoyed it. I have my gripes with it, but I do think, like, overall I'm gonna enjoy it the more I watch it. Um, and I just, I think this is some of those things that I think, as I've realized from our conversations from our podcast, that, like, um, look, I love a good film that has, like, longer runtimes, but make it worth it for me. Let us know what you guys think. What's your rating for Deadpool Wolverine? Did you love it? What is what are your loves and your gripes? Because we have them. So leave them down in the comments below, and we'll chat with you guys later.
We'll see you guys.